We have a major Phoenix Suns update revolving around free agency as a new report has dropped linking the Phoenix Suns to a specific type of player and what Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory thinks will solve a problem for the Phoenix Suns in a major hole that they had last season. So we're going to dive in and explore how the Phoenix Suns could potentially even get this position of need, and if so, who are the potential guys that they could go out and get. We'll be diving and exploring all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been absolutely fantastic, showing your love and support for the channel, which has been absolutely fantastic. As you guys do know, we will be going live today. We will be going live at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, as our special guest, John Voita from Bright Side of the Sun, will be joining me and Suns Jam Podcast to discuss the Phoenix Suns off season. So if you guys are interested, make sure to come by and join that, as that will be a fantastic time for all of us. Without further ado, we're going to dive in and we're going to get into today's video at hand. So make sure to grab that snack and let's get into it, as this is very interesting for the Phoenix Suns once again, as there are a lot of talks about this team and what they potentially could be doing this off season, right? And with those latest reports we saw from Mark Stein yesterday, we saw this drop where the Phoenix Suns could potentially keep Kevin Durant, as they have not had those discussions yet, and we all know that they're going to do the head coaching search first, which does make sense. But in that news, we also saw that the Suns are prioritizing a position this offseason, and we're going to dive into that, as this was posted to Yardbarker, but it was originally read from Brandon Ma of Phoenix Suns Sports Illustrated, and I want to give him a fantastic job for writing this article. And what he said is that a report from NBA insider Jake Fisher of the Stein line highlighted a specific position the Suns may be looking to add to their roster this offseason. And one roster that rumbles that has emerged from the desert is that the Phoenix Suns, regardless if they keep Kevin Durant or if they don't, they will be looking to add a starting level center this offseason. And for Phoenix Suns fans, that is a big thing to hear, as we see here that the Suns want to further upgrade on the move that they made during last season, where they traded away Jusuf Nurkic to replace him with Nick Richards. And what we all know is the Phoenix Suns do need a center, right? This is music to our ears. The Phoenix Suns, unfortunately, just didn't have those guys. Nick Richards was a pretty solid backup guy for the Hornets, and I thought he was going to be a pretty decent fringe starting big, and he kind of lived up to that, but he would probably be better as a backup role. Also, Godaro maybe can play the 4, the Suns maybe think, can play kind of the 5 as well as a backup, but not really a really good starter. And since DeAndre Ayton, they haven't had this key starter, this starting center that can work in the pick and roll with Devin Booker and make things a lot easier as a rim protector and as a paint deterrent to help the defense for this Phoenix Suns team. And I think this is absolutely fantastic to hear this news from the Phoenix Suns. Now, whether if that center comes via a trade, whether that center comes via free agency is yet to be discussed, but ultimately I think it will be very difficult for the Phoenix Suns to land a trade with Kevin Durant in getting a center back. I know there's a lot of teams that have interest in Kevin Durant, right? But those teams don't really have any bigs. Maybe a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves would maybe trade a guy like Naz Reid on a sign and trade deal. Maybe a team like the Dallas Mavericks would trade a guy like Daniel Gafford, but who knows how legitimate those two teams are really wanting to push for Kevin Durant, with obviously the Mavericks scoring Cooper Flagg, the number 1 overall pick, and obviously the Minnesota Timberwolves being in the Western Conference Finals. Maybe they don't want to add this type of change of a massive player like Kevin Durant added onto their team. So ultimately, I don't necessarily know if there's going to be a center that's going to be available via trade for the Suns, even if they do look to offload some of these players. So I think the only way they're going to be able to strike and add some of these centers is via the buyout market and via free agency, And if we want to look at free agency, I'm looking at the unrestricted free agents. There's not really a big list for the Phoenix Suns, right? There's Brook Lopez, Clint Capella, Miles Turner, and I think Miles Turner will go back to the Indiana Pacers. Steven Adams, Al Horford, who looks like he might be retiring. Then you have Kevon Looney, our favorite Mason Plumlee, DeAndre Jordan, Tristan Thompson, Luke Cornett, Thomas Bryant, and there's a bunch of great names that are on that list. And I think the Suns could go out and find some of these guys that could really make an impact for this team in this free agency. Now, maybe not the impact that you would think immediately for this Suns squad, but helping out while they're trying to reconstruct this roster. And if we want to look at this article a little bit more from Brendan Ma, we can see that Richards showed flashes after Phoenix acquired him from the Hornets on January 15th, but was very inconsistent and did not prove enough to be a starting caliber center. Richards' $5 million salary for next season is non-guaranteed, and the Suns have to the end of June to decide whether to guarantee it or to waive him. The $5 million is still a really good value for Nick Richards, so Phoenix fully guaranteeing it could be dependent on other roster moves. And that's kind of how I kind of see this. I think Richards, even at $5 million, is a great value deal. And regardless if you think he isn't a starting caliber big, bringing him back at $5 million when you already have so many salary cap issues is a great value deal for a backup big. So I think bringing him back is a smart move for the Suns. But then ultimately looking back into this free agent market and trying to find a guy to really fill in the role with Nick Richards could be key. Personally, I think a guy like Clint Capella could be pretty solid. Now, he's way past his prime, where he was very dominant for the Atlanta Hawks and for the Houston Rockets. He's gotten a little bit slower, but he provides that paint defense that the Suns could utilize in free agency. And I think him and Nick Richards could kind of share starting minutes, right? And if you want to look at that, right, they kind of play a similar role. Obviously, Nick Richards a little bit more high flying, more of a lob threat now than Clint Capella as he's gotten a little bit older, maybe a little bit more athletic. But both really are, non-traditional three-point shooting big, going to rim protect, get shots blocked, and also protect the rim and grab those rebounds. And I think Clint Capella may be getting that starting job over Richards, but depending on foul trouble, if one of them is in foul trouble or if one of them is playing a matchup a little bit better, they kind of get more of the run, but they kind of split that starting job. Could really solve those issues for the Suns with the starting big, because there's not really a key starting big out there that this team can go out and trade to go get. If we want to also look back at some other names that are on this list, like I mentioned, I think Miles Turner is a little out of the price range. Brook Lopez would be a pretty good shooting big to put alongside Devin Booker. Al Horford, if you think he's going to go back to the Celtics or potentially retire. Steven Adams would be another nice name, but I think he's a little bit out of the Suns' price range. Kevon Looney's a pretty good backup, but I don't necessarily know if I want to get a true backup. Mason Plumlee I'm out on. And then the other name that really catches my eye, and I think he'd be more of a backup big for the Suns, not a starting big, but someone who could add something that the team very lacks, and you can see him in the thumbnail here, is Sandro Mamukelashvili. And for that you guys that don't know Sandro Mamukelashvili, he went to Seton Hall, my alma mater, and he is a fantastic shooting offensive big, something the Suns have very, very missed this last couple of seasons. They tried to use it with Bol. They tried to get it with Oso Guardaro. It hasn't really been able to work with those guys, and I think Sandro can kind of come in. He can slot into the 4, play the 5 as well. And yes, he's not a, big flashy name, but he's going to come and do the dirty work as a hustle, hard work guy. He spent his time on the edges of benches in Milwaukee and San Antonio, some winning cultures, and he can bring that impact. And not only that, I think he'd be a perfect culture guy for Phoenix, kind of similar to Bol. The fans would absolutely love him. He'd give you some great games and some great moments in when he gets that opportunity, but also is just a great character as well. So a guy like Sandro Mamukelashvili, I'm keeping my eyes on him, and he's the guy. I know he's not that big flashy guy, and he's not going to be starting, but on a good deal where he's team friendly, give me Sandro Mamukelashvili. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know who guys would like first starting center or to bring in for this center group for the Suns, regardless if it's via trade or via free agency. I know it's a little bit slim pickings in free agency, but maybe the Suns just try to find a guy to kind of hold them over for this season alongside Nick Richards, and then next year look to go and get that dominating big that they thought they had with Dominatin to kind of bring it in with Devin Booker. But once again, let me know your thoughts. I hope to catch you guys later in the stream with John and I, and have a great rest of your day if I don't see you. Once again, peace out and go Phoenix Suns.